On tonight's show, the general manager of the Stockton Kings, Anjali Ranadive, joins me for an exclusive interview. We're going to learn about Anjali's background, how she got to the position that she is in currently, plus what being a general manager in the G League entails. It's all right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Dave. Now, download Dave today at dave.com/LockedOnNBA. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less, no credit check, no late fees. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, and I had the opportunity ahead of the Kings home opener last night against the Golden State Warriors to sit down with Anjali Ranadive inside the Lexus Lounge below the lower bowl of the Golden One Center. Most people know Anjali as the daughter of Sacramento Kings owner Vivek Ranadive. It kind of starts and ends there for a lot of people. So this interview was a really unique opportunity to get to know Anjali, the business person or the business side, the executive side of Anjali Ranadive a little bit more. She spends a lot of time talking about her journey to how she became the general manager of the Stockton Kings. Plus, she gives us insight on what it's like to be a GM in the G League, which is very different from being the GM of an NBA franchise. Plus, she talks about, because the Stockton Kings are affiliates or affiliated with the Sacramento Kings and an extension of the Kings organization, what it's like to collaborate with Monty McNair and the Kings front office. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff here that I think you're going to enjoy. I came away from this interview, one, understanding a whole heck of a lot more about who Anjali is and how she got to where she's at, and two, understanding a whole heck of a lot more about what it is to be a GM in the G League, which is something I've never heard about, never talked about, never really learned about before. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview. I came out of it really pleased, and I thought it was a really insightful interview. So I hope you approach it with an open mind, and please enjoy this conversation with Stockton Kings GM Anjali Ranadive. Anjali, finally, we're able to do this. So excited to be able to talk to you, the general manager of the Stockton Kings, here on the home opener for the Sacramento Kings season. We're here inside the Golden One Center. So before we get into everything else about you and Stockton and everything, how much do you enjoy this time of year, just with Stockton Kings right around the corner, Sacramento Kings starting tonight?
It's the best time of year. I mean, having the whole summer, besides Summer League, with no basketball, outside of rewatching film and rewatching games. You already know. I know you can relate to this because you're like me. We're obsessed with the game. So to be able to be here and, on opening night, leading up to our opening night too for Stockton, it's the best time of year. I'm so excited.
We were talking before we started how quickly this summer has gone by, and it's been a very busy and active summer for you.
Yes.
You getting promoted to the Stockton Kings general manager position, while Lindsey Harding getting the opportunity as the head coach of the Stockton Kings. So you two are making history. The two women in those positions is just absolutely incredible, leading an organization. I imagine there's a lot of maybe pressure, but also a lot of pride that comes with that.
Absolutely. It's a dream come true. If you would have told me this, when I was a little girl, I wouldn't have believed you. Just growing up as such a big basketball fan, watching every single NBA, WNBA game that I possibly could, things kind of stick out to you though. Like you really saw an emergence of women, coming into the media on the broadcasting side, kind of in the 90s, and growing up in the 90s was such an exciting time for basketball. But I think one thing that's always kind of stuck out to me was that there was just such limited representation when it came to the coaching staff, when it came to the front office, and there were amazing trailblazing women, like I said, on the media side, like Lisa Leslie, who I really looked up to. But I think just what really kind of hit me was this offseason when Lindsey and I were conducting some of our interviews for new job openings and positions that were available. We talked to some incredible young women, and they kind of spoke about how, when we came into these roles and they saw that for the first time, they kind of changed what they wanted to do in their careers. So some of them were talking about, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, I want to run an NFL team. I want to, be the coach, the first female coach of an NBA team. So to hear them talking about that, and that was just because Lindsay stepped into that position, it opened up a whole new world to them. So I think that's kind of what really humbled me and inspired me the most,
Can we talk about your NBA journey a little bit? And let's start with what made you decide that this is what you wanted to do, working as a basketball executive? You said you're a hoops fiend like I am, so you love the game, obviously, but what made you decide that this is the route that you wanted to go?
I think I kind of always knew from the time I was little. Like you said, I grew up a basketball nerd, and growing up in the Bay Area, I was a big fan of the Warriors at the time. So my whole wall at home was, Latrell Sprewell and Chris Mullin and Baron Davis and Jay Rich. And so I was just always a big fan of the game. I played my whole life. It was also something that my dad and I shared. It was kind of a connection that we had. But I started working while I was attending Berkeley in college. I started interning for the Warriors in the community relations department. I think that was kind of when it really hit me that this could be a possibility. And I loved it so much. I got so much experience there. And I did kind of have a unique journey to the place that, to where I am today. But I, had a music career after that. And I will say I learned a lot, just in the industry in general when it comes to always being on your toes. There's a lot of similarities, to the basketball world and just in work ethic and having to always be ready and always be on. And then I moved into the nonprofit space where I ran a nonprofit and an animal sanctuary, which I still have now. But that kind of really taught me about management and business and having a higher purpose really in everything you do. So with that, I was able to then work in social responsibility with the Kings a few years ago. That's where I started back in Sacramento. And then eventually moved on to the basketball operations side as the assistant GM last year under Paul Johnson. So, and then now I'm here today. But it seems like it was a bit of a whirlwind, of course, like a very unique journey. But I always knew it was basketball. Just it's always been my love.
Can you walk us through a little bit more about the last year and some change or so? Like what has that experience been like for you? What have you learned? And is there anything specifically over that year that you either want to talk about or just experience that you got to do, or just I'm very curious what it looks like to rise in an organization that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the number one thing was having Paul Johnson as my mentor. He won the GM of the year for the G League last year, so he's literally the best in the business, And so being able to learn, having a front row seat to scouting, and player personnel and player development and roster management and basketball operations and just everything that he did, in between. I think it was an experience that I really can't even put into words, and it really definitely helped equip me for the role I'm in today. And one thing that we were the most proud of was last year we broke the franchise record for wins in a season, and there were a lot of things to be proud of. We had the runner-up for Coach of the Year in Bobby Jackson, runner-up for MVP in Nehemias Queta. So we really want to continue to build off of that success, though.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Sackyard Community Tap House. This is a phenomenal place for you to go and catch a Kings game. The Kings play a lot of road games early on in the season, right? And of course, you can watch it from the comfort of your own home, but sometimes you want to watch it and get out, right? Or watch it with fellow Kings fans, or just to enjoy your night out. Going to Sackyard is a great place, not just to watch Sacramento Kings basketball. It's a great place to go, period, and bring the whole family. Yeah, it's known for its amazing beers on tap and things like that, plus their local wines for you to try and different food trucks that come every single weekday. So you get a different cuisine every time you get out there. But also, it's a great place to bring the friends and family. They have an outdoor patio with lawn games and stuff like that. And they also highly encourage you to bring your furry friends as well. Yeah, dogs are more than welcome at Sackyard. And check this out. Sackyard is having their 5th annual Heroes, Hops, and Hot Rods Brew Fest on Saturday, November 4th. It's happening from 2 to 7 o'clock. It's a full-on block party style brew fest with all proceeds that benefit the Firefighters Burn Institute. This intimate community event will feature a dozen of the best Northern California breweries, wineries, and cider, as well as classic car competition. So it's a great night out. Enjoy that in addition to Sacramento Kings basketball. And because Sackyard is partnering with Locked On Kings. I'm very excited that on November 15th, we will have our first ever Locked On Kings watch party. Kings at Lakers. Join me at Sackyard. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock. We will watch the game together as a Locked On family and enjoy seeing the Kings beat LA. Sackyard Community Tap House, the home of the Locked On Kings podcast. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Dave. Finances can be really intimidating and overwhelming. That's why you need Dave. Dave can make managing your money so much easier with an interest-free extra cash advance, fee-free goal tracking, and easy ways to find a side hustle to make more money. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less, no credit check, and no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money that you need with no interest and then settle up later. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people have already downloaded Dave to make their finances easier. So if you're in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/lockedonnba. That's dave.com/lockedonnba. Again, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app today or go to dave.com/lockedonnba. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees do apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
General managers, I mean, we think about it mainly from a NBA perspective, right, or NFL or whatever sport, but the G League, I mean, it just is exploding. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So because G League organizations work in partnership with NBA organizations, what does a G League general manager role look like? What are some of the responsibilities that you have?
Yeah, so it's definitely, I will say it is a little bit unique, as you mentioned, compared to the NBA or the NFL, because with the G League, there's less staff, and also it changes every single day. So with an NBA team, the roster, is pretty much the same throughout the year. For us, it can change any day, whether because of assignments, because of two-way guys, because of injuries, and so because of that, I think you have to wear many hats. So it's ever changing. But some of the main roles and kind of aspects of the job, of course, roster management, of course, as you mentioned, collaboration with Sacramento. That's synergy is really important to us. It's very important to Sacramento. It's very important to Stockton. So always kind of collaborating and working with everyone in the Sacramento front office and the coaching staff on all of our projects, whether it's our draft. That's literally tomorrow, And then, of course, the basketball operations side, managing staff and the oversight of staff in general, and just things that pop up every single day. No day is the same. I can tell you that right now.
Since the Kings moved to Stockton, the Stockton Kings moved from Reno. I know they're Bighorns at the time, but I've noticed just how closely both organizations are, to where Bobby Jackson was the head coach, but he was in the practice facility every training camp working with the main roster. Of course, two-way contracts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the collaboration between your team and like Monty's team in the front office here in Sacramento, what does that collaboration look like? Yeah,
so that was kind of one of the main goals for the season, was to continue to kind of build off of the synergy that we had last year. But every single day I'm meeting or talking with or calling and driving probably crazy, Phil Jabbour and Wes Wilcox and Paul Johnson. We literally have a meeting after this. So we work very closely together, and I'm so lucky to be able to do that, because I get to learn from those guys who are literally the best, as I mentioned. And yeah, so whether it's the draft, whether it's roster management, whether it's our player development programs, Lindsay has an incredible relationship with Coach Brown, obviously having been under him, for a year and working in player development. So she has a very close line of communication with him as well. And even now we've had workouts all summer, pretty much with our G League guys and our Sacramento guys until the SAC training camp started, obviously. But our coaches for Stockton, are at the Natomas facility in the morning putting in work. They're there at 6:30 in the morning, and then they have to come over here and then, participate in Sacramento practice. So, and we all, the staff, we're all on the same schedule essentially. So again, we're always working together, always collaborating. And it's a really important part of the development for the staff, for, the coaches, but also for the players, for the G League players to know and understand that they are supported, that they're working through the same player development program, that synergy is really close knit. So they feel that, they're not two separate entities, that the Stockton Kings are a part of the Sacramento Kings.
Well, I'm sure there are universal goals for both organizations, but what about for you as the Stockton Kings GM? What are your goals for this season for Stockton?
Yeah, Lindsay and I, she's been incredible. We've had a really great working relationship, and we kind of sat down with the Sacramento front office too, and our Stockton Kings staff, and established, just our goals. Number one goal is winning. Absolutely. I kind of mentioned some of the success we had last year, which was great, but we lost in the second round of the playoffs. Still hurts. And so we want to build off of that. Our goal is to win a championship. That's the number one goal, and then going off of that is continuing to develop, and not just for our players, but for our staff as well. We had, you mentioned B-Jack, and he moved on to the 76ers as an assistant coach, that's what you want to see, right. That's the goal. That's the goal of the G League in general. And then also, outside of development, synergy, we want to continue to maintain that. Community is another big goal of ours, and kind of continuing to make an impact, because that's something that Sacramento, I think, really has done an incredible job of as an organization, and kind of making that always an emphasis. One of their, main sayings is making the world a better place. And it sounds cheesy, but it's true. They've done such an amazing job of that. So we just had a community event. Actually, it was the 209 pantry, where we were distributing goods and food and, different supplies to underserved communities. So it was amazing to see, because our whole coaching staff, all of our players showed up for that. So it's just kind of a testament to the fact that we're all kind of bought into that goal. And then the last goal is really awareness and visibility for the G League in general. I know for me personally, you mentioned how the G League is growing. Opening night, the other night, for the NBA, there were 50% of the guys who were playing on different NBA teams had been in the G League at some point. And last year, that number was 47%. I think before that, it was 40%. So it's like you said, it's growing every year. But I really want people to start to see the G League as more than just a separate entity or just a developmental league. It's really a part of the journey for a lot of these guys, and not even just the players, but the coaching staff, referees, people in the front office. So I think for me, I really want Stockton to kind of be at the forefront of leading that charge.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Jase Medical. They provide a Jase case, and they're all about being prepared for the unknown. I mean, look at all the things that are happening in our world recently, right? Unrest in the Middle East, the horrible fires in Hawaii. You have hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida. We had a minor earthquake happen here in Sacramento not too long ago. The Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Life is going to throw curveballs at you, right? And instead of having to go to the emergency room and deal with that stress and the unknown of if you're going to be able to get what you need or what your loved ones need to get back healthy and get back on your feet, the Jase case gives you those life-saving antibiotics for emergency use that you have at your beck and call in your home. All it takes to get a Jase case is you fill out a simple online form, and in some cases jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. You can get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions, doctor-created and doctor recommended. Don't get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at JASEmedical.com. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the number one way to play daily fantasy sports. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The best part about PrizePicks, it's just you versus the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, which of course includes the pros and the sharks out there that make a living off of beating you in something that's supposed to be a fun hobby, all you do is you play against the numbers. You pick more or less than PrizePicks projections for 2 to 6 players, whether it's in the NBA and NFL, whatever it may be. You pick more or less than those PrizePicks projections for a wide variety of different stats, for a wide variety of different players. If you get those right, you can win up to 25 times your money. PrizePicks is so much fun. I highly encourage you to give it a try. It's truly the only daily fantasy sports app that I not only use consistently, but I actually enjoy. Other daily fantasy sports apps are like hassles and just they don't they don't captivate me and draw my interest. PrizePicks I can play when I want to. If I want to take a night off and not worry about it, I don't have to play. But when I want to, if there's a couple games that I'm interested in, I'll look at the PrizePicks spreads and go, oh, that's a good one. Or, oh, let me take this player going over 20 points or whatever it may be. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
The two-way contracts are still relatively new. I think they're brilliant by the NBA, and the opportunities that it's providing. I mean, getting to know Keon Ellis over the last couple of years. Jordan Ford from Folsom has a two-way contract, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned Nimi earlier. He's now in Boston getting opportunity after 2 years on a two-way contract. They just added a third one this year. How big of a deal do you think that is, not just for G League organizations, but for these players getting this opportunity?
I was so excited when I heard that they were adding a third two-way because, I mean, there's so many reasons why it's great. I think the first thing that kind of stands out to me is that it's creating more incentives for some of our most talented players who maybe didn't get on the roster, but who have the option to go overseas. It happens every single day. I see guys, you know, who are in the NBA or who have the potential to get to the NBA who have to make really hard decisions sometimes for them and their families. You know, the fact of the matter is they're getting offered more money overseas a lot of the time. And so they leave, and it's totally understandable. But having that third two-way is creating more incentives. It's creating more support. You know, and on top of that, it's really adding flexibility for the NBA teams' rosters and for our rosters as well. And just in general, kind of helping to develop the rest of the guys. You know, the better talent that you have, everyone else has to level up. Everyone else is playing up to that competition. So there's so many ways why the two-ways are important, but having three, I was so excited when that happened. So
I want to step away from the G League really quick and focus on the Sacramento Kings. Going back to last year, breaking the playoff drought, we couldn't help but notice you, your family, so many fans just filling up the Golden One Center from center court, just enjoying the moment as much as we all were. It's a long time coming with that. How big of a deal was that to you? How big of a deal was that to the organization? And how big of a deal, because you're so community-oriented too, do you think that was to the Sacramento community?
yeah, so it was just so surreal. I'll start with the community part because coming from a nonprofit background, I had worked in a lot of different community, you know, situations in California and just in different nonprofits. I had collaborated with a lot of different communities in California. But coming to work here in social responsibility and working in the Sacramento community, it just totally, it was such a different experience because everyone here has such an all hands on deck mentality. To see how Sacramento showed up for each other in different scenarios, you know, in different programs and projects that we had. But then we were still losing at the time, right? And so to see everything change and to see them finally get what they deserve, you know, and they deserve so much more, and I want us to continue to build off of that success. But I think that part was really important to me, having seen how incredible the community is and for us to finally have, you know, a winning organization. And then on top of that, for the organization in general, I mean, seeing the team, the players, the staff, the coaches, everybody, you know, everybody was bought into the system, that Monty, that Wes, that Coach Brown, the culture and like just the entire shift in the culture that they brought. Everyone was bought in. And so seeing everyone work so hard, put their blood, sweat, and tears, you know, day in and day out, and have it actually, you know, pay off. And even, I don't know, more than that, I think it was just, like I mentioned before too, the connection with my dad, you know, it's something obviously we had dreamed about, and people just, he loves this team, you know, with all of his heart. And so to see it finally pay off, it meant so much.
Well, finally, reflecting on your entire journey, you already talked a lot about what you've learned, but what about moments over the course of time, even before stepping into the Stockton role that you're in, are you most proud of, or things that just stick out when you think about your journey and go, that moment, I didn't know it at the time, but that was a big moment in my development, in my career? Are there any moments that come to mind for that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I have to bring up the time during Stockton because the time that I was most proud, and when I saw that the system really works, it was honestly Jordan Ford getting the two-way. That was the moment that I was like, this is this is why I'm doing this. There's so many reasons, the community, the organization, winning, but really when you're working in the G League, that's the goal, and that's what I want to see happen more of this season. Even when Deontay Burton, who was on our Stockton team and is also on the Stockton team this year, when he got the 10-day contract, to me, that's what it's all about. Seeing these guys, those two work harder than almost anyone I've ever known. And especially with Jordan, like you said, being a local hometown hero, and just from a year ago when we signed him last summer, to see him put in the work and to see him work through the system and be with our Sacramento guys and just kind of trust the process. I think it was the day before my birthday when he got the TwoWay.
Wow.
Yeah, and so just seeing that, I think that was the most monumental moment of, wow, it really does work, and in the words of Davion Mitchell, trust your work,
Well, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this, and I think I speak for a lot of Kings fans, which we're excited to see where it goes and what you and Sacramento and Stockton all accomplished together, so thanks again.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you.
Now, something I didn't mention, or I forgot to mention on last night's Locked On Kings podcast after the Kings lost to the Golden State Warriors, I had a spice bet with the ESPN 1320's Kyle Madsen. He is a Bay Area guy, so he has a Warrior fan background. Extremely well plugged in here, though, in Sacramento. Worked with him and know him for very many years. So he's an amazing Sacramento-based radio host, even if he has his Bay Area ties and his Bay Area fandoms. But Kyle and I both have very weak spice tolerances. So we made a bet that if the Kings win, he would have to eat spicy food. If the Warriors win, I would have to eat spicy food. And we'd have to come together to do a preview podcast before Kings and Warriors Game 2, which is happening on November 1st, I believe. So we are going to be recording that podcast, and it is going to be released for you on Monday, October 30th, the day before Halloween. We will be eating spicy foods, including some hot sauces that you might be familiar with. And we are going to be doing a Locked On Kings podcast while dealing with the pain of those hot sauces. And when I tell you I have no spice tolerance, I mean I have no spice tolerance. So hopefully the content is going to be good, because I'm going to be miserable while we are going through it. But make sure to tune in on Monday, October 30th to watch that punishment play out as we preview the Kings and Warriors Part 2. Of course, before that, we have the Kings and Lakers tomorrow night. I'll have a full post-game podcast for you from the Golden One Center after hopefully the Kings beat the Lakers. And if you're going to that game, let me know. Come see me. I'd love to chat with you. Say hi. I sit at the top of section 105, which is the media section, but I'm usually wandering around the concourse and outside and things like that. So if you see me, please don't hesitate to come say hi. Would love to chat with you before the game, or maybe even during halftime if you see me during some free time as well. So appreciate your support of the Locked On Kings podcast. As always, can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.